1023, we were attempting contact. You okay in there? Police! This is the police. I'm coming down the stairs. Hey, hey, show me your hands. Sir, show me your hands.
Sometimes the scariest footage isn't what the camera captures. It's what someone tries to erase. When I watched the new trailer for Bodycam, I expected a tense found footage thriller. What I didn't expect was something that feels like a collision between end-of-watch, systemic corruption drama, and full-blown supernatural horror. And if this film delivers even half of what the trailer promises, we might be looking at one of Shudder's most disturbing releases in years. Before we begin, would you please support me? Subscribing is free and very important to me. Please subscribe for better analysis and more videos. The premise is deceptively simple. Two police officers respond to what seems like a routine domestic disturbance in a quiet suburban home. The kind of call that happens every day. The kind of situation that usually ends with paperwork and tension. But this one doesn't. Gunshots ring out. A man is killed. A baby is killed. And in a single irreversible moment, everything collapses. From that point on, Bodycam stops being about law enforcement procedure and starts becoming about panic. The officers know what this looks like. They know what the headlines will say. They know what public outrage will do to their careers, their reputations, their lives. So they make a decision. They attempt to cover it up. That choice is where the film truly begins. Shudder's official trailer makes it clear that Bodycam isn't interested in portraying a straightforward crime thriller. Instead, it slowly peels back layers of guilt, paranoia, and something far more unsettling. As the officers scramble to control the narrative, strange and unexplained events begin to interrupt their efforts. And here's where things turn. The cameras are still recording, but the bodycams might not be the only things watching. The entire film unfolds through the perspective of police body camera footage. That creative decision isn't just stylistic, it's immersive. There are no cinematic wide shots, no comforting distance between the audience and the chaos. You're locked inside the officer's point of view. If they don't see something, neither do you. That limited perspective builds tension in a way traditional horror often can't. You start noticing movement in the background, flickers of figures that may or may not be there, audio distortions that suggest something is interfering with the footage. The trailer hints at a cult-like presence, possibly organized, possibly supernatural, possibly something far worse. It's subtle at first, then it escalates. The official synopsis confirms that when the officers attempt to suppress the truth to avoid being publicly destroyed, they discover that their bodycams aren't the only witnesses to what happened. That single detail reframes the entire story. Because now this isn't just about internal investigations or media backlash. It's about cosmic accountability. The horror here feels layered. On the surface, it's a story about two officers trying to survive the consequences of a tragic mistake. Underneath that, it becomes a commentary on corruption and moral decay. And beneath that layer, there's something supernatural that doesn't operate by human laws or procedures. It feels almost mythic. The idea that systemic wrongdoing can summon something darker. Director Christensen, known for The Puppetman and Superhost, has built a reputation for tension that creeps rather than explodes. His films tend to let dread simmer before unleashing chaos. From what the trailer shows, Bodycam follows that same philosophy. The cast includes Jaime Calica, Sean Rogerson, Catherine Lauk Hagquist, Angel Prater, and Keegan Connor Tracy. In found footage horror, performances are everything. If the fear doesn't feel authentic, the illusion breaks. But the trailer suggests grounded acting, raw breathing, fragmented dialogue, real-time panic. And that authenticity matters, because the supernatural elements only work if the human ones feel real. Early reactions following the film's premiere at the 2025 Popcorn Frights Film Festival have started appearing online. Letterboxd users seem divided but intrigued. Many rated it 3 stars or higher. One viewer described it as a blend of Training Day and H.P. shit. Lovecraft. That's an ambitious comparison, but it signals something important. This film is aiming high. Another user gave it 4 out of 5 stars and claimed they had never seen anything quite like it. They praised its horror elements but also pointed to deeper themes about how individuals lose their humanity when participating in systemic evil. That's not surface-level commentary. That's provocative. Not everyone was convinced. Some viewers felt the runtime stretched too long. Others suggested it might have functioned better as a segment within an anthology like V or H or S rather than a standalone feature. And honestly, that reaction makes sense. Found footage horror has always divided audiences. It either fully immerses you or completely alienates you. There's rarely a middle ground. But here's what stands out to me. Bodycam doesn't look like it's playing safe. It takes risks. It blends procedural realism with supernatural retribution. It uses the camera not just as a storytelling device but as a moral instrument. And that's compelling, because the true horror here may not be ghosts or cults. It may be the idea that actions can't be buried. When the officers attempt to rewrite the truth, something rewrites their reality instead. There's a moment in the trailer where the footage glitches and a shape appears behind one of the officers for a split second. It's almost easy to miss, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. That's effective horror. Not loud, not obvious, but persistent. Shudder will release Bodycam on March 13th, and whether this becomes a cult hit or a divisive experiment, it's clear the film is trying to say something bigger than its genre. It's confronting, it's uncomfortable, it's asking what happens when power meets panic, and when something ancient decides to respond. If you've been waiting for a found footage horror film that does more than deliver jump scares, this might be worth your attention. If you're drawn to stories that blend social commentary with supernatural dread, this could be one of the more interesting releases of the year. So now I'm curious. Does the supernatural angle enhance the crime thriller tension, or does it distract from it? Do you think the cult imagery suggests literal horror or metaphorical justice? And if you were in their position, would you try to control the narrative, or confess before something else forces you to? Bodycam begins streaming on March 13th, and once the footage starts rolling, it looks like there's no turning it off. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. This is where these kinds of films come to life. By the way, please support me. Subscribing is free and very important to me. Please subscribe for better analyses and more videos. Stay curious, be critical, keep your eyes on the screen until the next story, and remember, every film you haven't seen is a new film.